Yes, it's definitely looking golden. I'm in my yard right now, and I am about to cut down this pineapple. I've been watching it grow for a little while, and so one of the things I wanted to say about planting, about being patient during the process, is that God is delighting that we as believers grow in faith, and that faith empowers us to grow in certain areas in our lives. As a believer, we can go through all sorts of situations, and those situations come in our lives to help us to, develop, in certain areas. I remember that I was teaching on the topic of virtues versus vices, and virtues are habitual characteristics that lead towards a perfected character that enables us to be more like individuals that are in the image of Christ. And of course, vices are habitual characteristics that are in the negative, so vices are the opposite of virtues. And so we ultimately, as believers in Christ, want to grow in our virtues. We want to grow in characteristics that we should be known by, that are beneficial, that are in the image of Christ. Love, joy, peace, long-suffering, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, meekness, self-control, or temperance. And so these characteristics of the fruit of the Spirit are vital. And so I want to compare them to this pineapple today in reference to, us being patient during the process, us continually watering, continually, observing, us continually protecting, us continually doing all of the necessary things to make sure that we have a good crop or a good end result of what we're leaning towards, or we're pushing towards, what we want God to ultimately bless. And so one thing about pineapples is that they're very easy to grow. All you do is pretty much take this top stalk right here, and then you cut off the top layer of the pineapple, and you kind of just plant it in the ground. You plant it in the ground, and from there it takes off, and it creates these this top thing here turns into these things here after a while, and a nice juicy fruit comes out of the middle of it, out of this middle stalk here, and it creates a pineapple. And so one of the things about us as believers in Christ, we have trouble waiting during the process. There's frustrations, there's all sorts of trials and tribulations, all sorts of things that come and can frustrate us, can cause us to doubt, can cause us to think things that are not beneficial for our growth. And so one of the things that God does is He inspires, He encourages, He helps build, He helps teach us, in the midst of our trials, in the midst of our, indecisive moments. And so, it's one of the important things about being a believer is that you always have your eyes on Jesus. You always have your focus on the end result, and not always focusing on the immediate circumstances that you're going through. Because in essence, God is trying to teach us to be faithful during the process so that we can ultimately see the end result that is beneficial to us, of course, which is the outcome, the blessing, the glorious day and the glorious time that we're all looking forward to. But it is definitely a blessing to see the end result come to pass. And so I'm going to cut this here
and I want to cut it right at the bottom, and alright.
Okay. One thing about healthy fruit is that there's a fragrance. If you could smell this right now, you would know what I'm talking about. There is a awesome fragrance that comes from healthy fruit. And likewise in our lives, there is a fragrance that comes from the repetitive behavior of Christ that we exhibit, in our lives. And so it's a blessing when people can smell the fragrance from the character of your life. All right, here it is. So, brothers and sisters, I just want you to know that be patient during the process. Allow God to mature your fruit, your characteristics, your Christ-like characteristics, because it's vital that you remember that it's a process, a sometimes painstaking process that we have to go through in order to develop good, healthy, strong, lasting fruit, which fragrance is going to fill the room, and all people are going to ask, where did you come about with that fruit, and how can they obtain those characters, those ways that look like Christ, because you are an ultimate example of what it is that they need to have so that they can also be pleasing to God. So, brothers and sisters, remember, feet follows focus. So focus on Jesus and your feet will follow. Walk in victory.